Sunday, we had some get outs at Sugar Grove Nature Center. We brought the hives home. Next Sunday is gonna be a baking party at my house. So we are going to get the boxes up and rolling next Sunday. You have a borscht, I will have chili dog. If we might have some meat samples, bring your favorite beverage, enough to share maybe. So that's next Sunday, and I'm gonna put that on Facebook. I'm also gonna send it to people. Those of you who are not members of the community match, your email, I will send it also email, because sometimes some people are Facebook, some people are email, some people are text, I'll cover it all. Let's see, what else? Sugar, and then the following week, we will actually be setting hives back up at Sugar Grove, getting the hives that we lost and relosing over the winter and cleaning up and getting going. So this coming Sunday is painting party. The next weekend will probably be probably Saturday. It could be in the evening. I'm not sure. Depending on what, if you are interested, we'll set up the hives. And then on the 16th, that's your pickup date, correct, Tom? Still
16th.
16th, April 16th in the morning. I'm helping Tom, but in the afternoon later on, maybe 2 or 3. Will be in, weather permitting, installing the bees out at Sugar Grove. So if you want to see an installation, package installation, that sometimes hands on. Yeah. Anything else I should add? Yes. Yeah. I kind of do both Facebook and email. Since I have your number now. All right. Anything else I should talk about?
So did everybody sign in? Did you get everybody's email?
Yeah, so if you're a member, I have your email. If you're not and you want the information, I have an information list only too. Before you leave, give me your email and I'll send that to you. All right?
If you're a member of CIBA too, if you're a member of HOI, the Hartwell Club Short, it's where Steve and I are from. So.
Keep bringing these.
And then we're also starting up a business aviary group in the Hartwell Association, where you get to go and meet different people's aviaries and see how they do.
Field trips.
Field trips.
Yeah, field trip. And it is. It's kind of, oh, I like that. Oh, I don't like that one, And it's kind of nice to see everything and how they do things.
And then we're going to capture these birds at some point, but that's a just enough. So we'll see.
Okay. And maybe we need one halfway, over in Mackinac area.
We'll figure that out.
Morton, Mackinac. Okay. Tom, raise your hand. That's our president. I'm the treasurer. Tom's consultant. That's it. Oh, he's consultant. Oh, Izzy's on the board. That's who you're pointing at. I told her right here. Izzy's on the board. Yeah, and both Tom and Izzy are kind of like, gee, do you want to be on the board with me? Right? So, all right, so I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Tom.
All right, let me find my notes over here outside. All right, so welcome everybody. Real quick, show of hands, this is going to be your first year. Welcome to the addiction. You're going to be hooked, I guarantee it. You're going to be crazy people like us, crazy bee people. It's not as bad as crazy chicken people. Do we have crazy chicken people here? Anyways, I have a panel of folks here. So all different skill levels. Some are a couple years in. Some have been doing this a long time, and some of us are in between. So I'll try and keep my opinions out of this and keep it just to theirs. So we'll just do. I have a bunch of questions, and then we'll actually open it up to everybody else if there's other things that I didn't cover on here. But we'll start at the end of the table. Introduce yourself and tell us your name and how many hives you got, how long you've been doing this, and why you got into bees.
My name is Kathy Van Vesten. I started in 2019 with doing the intern beekeeping class, and so 2019 I thought, okay, I'll do one hive. You know, I live in town, not super crazy. I've got 2 small children and kids in my neighborhood. I didn't want to overdo it. Second year I had 2 hives. Third year I had 2 hives again. I have a goal every year to overwinter a hive. I'm still working on that goal. Why I got into bees was because it seemed like a good, interesting thing to do.
project.
And there was kind of multi-layers. So my daughters could do it as a project for 4-H, which one has, and the other one hasn't had the, I can't convince to have the interest. The other one has the interest in the comfortable level, and the other one, you know, so it gets us out to, so it's something we can kind of do together. I'm one of those people, I like to learn new things. I don't dive deep into a lot of things. I like to dabble in a lot. And so this is a dabbling. I don't go super, I'm not the best resource for everything, but I know enough to talk about it comfortably with a lot of people. And I'm good with it. That's where I'm at.
And I am Mark Delashmet, as I say, I'm the old guy, I've,
Don't say that because that makes me the old lady.
oh, yeah, sorry.
Never.
You wear it.
I've been keeping bees probably about 8, maybe 9 years, to be honest with you, I really don't know. I enjoy it. I started doing it to make candles, and in my opinion, how difficult is it to make a candle? Well, I suck at it. I just can't get it right. So I don't make candles anymore.
As club members, you have use of candle molds.
With it.
That apparently didn't help you though.
No, I didn't. You know, I'm doing it because I like it. I've got probably about 9 hives as right now, 9 hives that are busting out at the seams. With it, I have promised 5 splits to some other people, which I will be splitting them up and giving them a start. With it. And for me, this is enjoyment. It's a source of enjoyment. I like it. You know, I will be doing this, I think, for a long time. So no. I live in Bloomington. I have some hives in Capital. I have some hives in Downs. Probably 3 different locations in Downs. With it. Somebody in Normal. With it. If anybody lives in that area and want me to drop in or you have a question, I'm more than happy to do it. If you give me a little notice.
I'm Lynn Fuchs. This will be my 3rd year into beekeeping. But, and I'm saying this with crossed fingers and toes, the only year that I've gotten bees through. So right now I have 1 hive. People don't shake your head, I don't have a hive. I have hives out in Hayworth, and for a chunk of the summer, I brought one in that I had a hive that just kept splitting, and I brought one into Bloomington, but that one didn't make it. I got into beekeeping for the bees, knowing how critical they are to our world and that they were struggling. I thought I would do my little part in my little corner of the world and didn't get into it so much for the honey. You find out that, oh, that honey part is kind of a cool part of it. So that's a plus, but I got into it because I wanted to see if I could get some healthy bees and help the environment.
My name's Izzy Harms. Just getting ready to go into my 3rd season. I've got 3 hives and just, yeah, excited. They're all still buzzing. I got into bees. It was just something grandma used to talk about, something she did growing up. And I happened across some YouTube videos here after we kind of moved to town a few years ago, and I kind of just decided, you know what, we got some roots down, I'm just gonna do it. So I'd like to work up to maybe 5 hives and some nukes this year.
And Izzy also helps, well, I would say he runs our club apiary with PK out in Sugar Grove Nature Center as well.
I'm gonna spend a lot of time out there. Everybody should. It's a good time.
We'll talk about that at the end too.
Hi, I'm Luke Harvey. I run Liberty Grove Apiary, Chillicothe, Illinois. I aim to have about 40 hives a year. And I think right now, to give you an idea, I got into beekeeping because Steve has bees, and I was staying out front of one of his hives and one stung me in the neck. We were like 50 feet away. I couldn't figure out why, and I asked him, and he's like, "Well, you should look into that." I don't think he thought I looked into it. But so I looked into it. So I read about 6 or 7 books, and I was like, "I'm gonna get bees." He's like, "Oh, okay." So I started with 1 hive, or I started with 2 hives, and then I had 4 hives, and then I had 10. Now I have 40. I will try all kinds of stuff. So I tried styrofoam hives. I tried insulating. I tried not treating. I tried treating. Treat away early on. We'll get into that. But so right now I have 2 sites. One of them's out in the field where I should have put a windbreak up because it killed almost. There's 12 hives out there. It killed 11 of those 12 hives. And then another one I had about 60% survival rate. So I'm low on hives right now, but they're hanging on. And then this year I put my first nukes to winter. I never tried that before. Or I tried it, but not successfully. So they made it through winter this year. Pretty excited by us. I think so.
So I'm Steve Schmidt, also from Peoria currently. I started beekeeping back in 2008, my first rural property outside St. Louis. So it's part of the St. Louis, Illinois beekeeping group for about my first 3 years. I had a mentor that I knew from the area that had bees. As a kid, I grew up with a neighbor that had bees back in the 80s in his backyard. So I had been exposed to having been around hives and working with him on woodenware and stuff like that when I was a young kid. So when we moved to the property, we wanted a fairly good sized garden. So I wanted to have some bees for pollination of the garden. And then I was always been a fan of honey. So I wanted the honey off the hives too. So I started with 2 back in 2008. And I fluctuated between 2 to 4 to 6 is where I'm most comfortable. I don't typically have less than 2. But a couple of 3 years ago, Luke was like, "Hey, I'm gonna push for 20." I was like, "Well, can't have my student have one with me, so I gotta have some more." And, it was a pretty good year for bees that year. I wound up with a bunch of queen cells and was able to make some successful splits. Wound up with like 20 that year. And that was the year that I realized that, going from working like 4 to 6 is a whole different ball of wax for the time commitment for like 20. So I after that year, I decided that 20 was more than I wanted to put in terms of time. I got property over in Illinois, where I live that I got goats and chickens and the whole mess. So I got a lot of irons in the fire. So having 20 hives is a lot for me to juggle. I also run he didn't mention it, but he's vice president of the Central Illinois or the Heart of Illinois Bee Club, and then I run the apiary for Heart of Illinois for the past 5 or so years. As he said, he was one of my students back in 2012-ish, 13, somewhere in there. I moved to Peoria from my other property in 2010. I think I moved bees up in the spring of 2011. And I've done everything. I've done lip balms, candles, wax. I've processed wax all the different kinds of ways you read on the internet. I've done, all the different kinds of foundations between no foundation and wax and small cell and plastic and, so like him, I've done it long enough that I've had enough time, enough seasons to kind of experiment with stuff and try to figure out what works for me. You know, I wish I say I could have something that's 100% successful, but typically my losses are about 50% a year. I think last year, going in the winter, I think I had about 6 hives between 2 sites. The Club Apiary hive out at Wildlife Prairie Park, I ran about 2 or 3 of my personal hives, and then I run some at home. And this spring, I have 1 hive that made it, and it was the hive that was a swarm cap. So packages, while I get a couple every year, typically haven't had really good overwintering success with for the past several years. Most of my success is with splits off of overwintered stuff or swarm captures, feral stuff. You know, it could be the guys down the street that swarmed out of his hive, not necessarily out of a bee tree, but so that's basically my background.
We also have done cutouts, so if you have questions about cutouts,
I got it in the cut.
you cut a hive out of somebody's house,
Yeah.
yeah, or a building, or a tree,
Garage, yeah.
a garage.
Does it go like the videos of the lady with the blonde hair? and
No.
Doesn't wear a veil
Those
or
are
any of that?
scoop outs. I don't know what those. So.
They go a little different.
Yeah, I mean, if you're interested in cutouts, definitely check out 628 Dirt Rooster. He's a YouTube channel, beekeeper down in Louisiana, southern Louisiana. I mean, that's almost exclusively what he posts. He doesn't post a lot of bee husbandry in terms of how he runs his bee yard. He almost exclusively covers his cutouts, and he'll give you a really good view of what a typical cutout is. A typical cutout for him, he's walking away with 20 to 40 stains.
Yeah, I don't think.
What was that name again?
628 Dirt Rooster.
But he also doesn't wear gloves most of the time.
He also-
He's usually, sometimes he wears a veil.
He does, yeah, he's pretty, he only puts veil and stuff on if they're really, really spicy.
He's a laid back feller.
He's a laid back color.
I would not suggest not wearing it. I would always suggest wearing a veil.
Yeah.
Your bees, you're on somebody else's bees. Tom has
So
super.
you know what, you led me right into my first question.
There you go.
So my first question here was I wanted to lay it out to the group and talk about protective equipment, because I know a lot of people here are new. A lot of people here have been doing this a long time, and we all have different comfort zones and all that stuff. PK, you guys?
Tara's on Zoom too, isn't she?
Yep, hi.
I didn't know. Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
Pretty great.
Great. And it looks like we've got 10 people on Zoom tonight. So hi to all the Zoom people as well. Yep, the Zoomers.
Look like a boomer.
Yeah, I'm Tara. This is my 3rd year. I think I had beginner's luck because I started with 2 nukes and I overwintered both of them my first year.
Wow.
And then last summer, I went up to 5 hives with splits. And I started this winter putting them down into 3 hives. And I'm very sad to say that I lost all 3. So it's a little bit like this, up and down, up and down. So I'm going to start with 2 more, and we'll see what happens with those. But we also got about 100 pounds of honey last summer, which was insane. And it was amazing. Raw honey, I'm addicted to it now, but I also just really love the bees. I miss them right now. I've driven by a friend's house and I see them all out and buzzing, and I miss them. So I'm really excited to get them back, get some more in the yard. And so yeah, that's my trials and tribulations of beekeeping.
What got you into bees, Tara?
I think I just like them for one thing. I like little insects and little creatures, but I think then also I like the science of it. I don't get to do science very much in my job. And so I just kind of like reading the science and studying them and watching them and learning about them. So that's kind of why I got involved.
I think that's a common thing across a lot of the people on the panel, we have a lot of engineers here. Some by day jobs, some by fantasy, and some by just armchair engineers too, or just kind of getting into the nuts and bolts of things and getting down in the weeds, if you will, of why things tick and how they operate. Terry, you took our class last year too, didn't you?
I didn't take
I guess
one of your classes. Yeah, I took an online class like during the start of the pandemic that was through, I believe, Ohio. No, it was Penn State had a free online beekeeping class. So I took that one. But I've gotten so much help from the people here in the Central Illinois Bee Club, and PK was nice enough to help me out last summer when my hives were like growing and I didn't know exactly what to do because there were so many bees. That was a good thing, but yeah, the group has really been helpful.
All right, so to the first question here, let's talk about protective gear, what you wear, what you started with and what you decided had to go, just words of advice to the folks in front of you.
We're just going down the line.
Yeah.
I don't do a thing without protective gear.
Anymore.
Correct. I was getting to that, sir. My first hive was like just sweet little lambs. They were so nice and calm. And then like July came and they were not anymore. They came after me. And so, I mean, I've got pictures of my, let's see, that was 3 years ago now. So she would have been 11 year old out there, shorts, not even flip flops on. And I'm like, I would have at least put, because you can step on them and they're going to sting you. So, and none of us are wearing anything. Not even a bit like it was that, like nice and everything. But then one time they just had after me and I got like 5 stings on that or like all over me. And I'm like, that's into that. Now I don't mow my yard without my holes with at least long sleeves on and a veil. And if it's a spicy day, then I'll have my whole suit on because I don't react well to stings. I swell up like puff marshmallow. Yeah, I don't like getting stung. So I was a lot braver at first until I wasn't. Now I always.
In addition to that, you mentioned whether or not you smoke.
I need a new smoker, so my smoke has not been reliable. But PK's version of sugar water, just a little squirt bottle, also is kind of calming for them. And honestly, I don't work hives as quickly as people with a lot more hives, because with 2 hives, there are times it'll take me 2 hours to go through my 2 hives, which would drive people with 20 hives, just absolutely batty, because they don't have time to do that. And if I go slow enough, then smoke or no smoke, I'm gonna be kind of equal because I'll just go so slow. I'll feel them, I'll think them, I'll talk to them. So, but I don't know. Everybody's got their own methods.
I don't hardly use any protective gear. I will have my jacket usually in a cloud or some sort of veil in case I say that I need it. I always tell people, first thing I tell people, hey, if you got gloves, throw them away. That's the advice that I give. You might not want to follow my advice, but I started using smoke probably a little bit last year and was pretty pleased with the results of that. Gosh, that really mellows them out a little bit with it. I did some cutouts last year, quite a few cutouts last year, and I found that the smoke really helps with it. I found that if you just kind of take your time and Don't run around like you're not, wave your arms back and forth. That really the bees don't care too much about what you do and what you don't. I'm comfortable being around bees. I think that makes a big difference. I didn't always used to be like that. As I say, when you first start with your bees, you should take get somebody to take a cell phone and video you releasing those bees in the hive. You can look back at that for years and smile and laugh about it. In my first package of bees, I was scared to death. With it. At that point, I had my new suit and everything else. With it, I have grown since then and much more comfortable being around them with it.
So Mark, do you wear nitrile gloves?
I don't wear any gloves at all. And really, I probably put on gloves 2 or 3 times in my life. I'm finding that I cut some bees out of a tree about a week ago. They cut the tree down. And they said they didn't know there were bees there. But here's this big hollow tree with all these bees in it. And I'm finding, and this happened to me last year, something in the wax, it's turning making my hands dry with it. I put all kinds of lotion on it. Cut these hive out of this tree the other day. My hands are starting to get dry. I'm gonna have to get some sort of rubber glove or something to put on. With it. I don't know what the reaction is. I don't know what it's doing.
It's a similar problem I have.
It's just kind of strange because other than last year, never had that problem. With it.
So Mark, without protective gear, are you usually in light colored, bright colored, dark colored clothes, or
Well,
doesn't matter?
I am usually in something other than black. With it. I don't really pay a whole lot of attention of what I have on and what I don't have on, but I do make sure that I don't have black. And I always say this, you think I'm smart enough by now that I would take this off before I get stung, because 90% of my stings are right around this band. I'm starting to learn, take it off, put it in your pocket before you deal with it. But no, I just don't use much of anything. Last year I did use smoke, especially with the cutouts, and I was really impressed how much nicer it was to deal with things with that.
Every time I see Mark with bees, he's usually got a concert shirt on or something like that. Lynn, you want to tell us about it?
I'm at that particular point of life where I'm warm a lot. And so I looked for a suit that was lots of airflow in it. So I specifically bought a full suit that had lots of mesh. I've had 0 stings in the suit. And I started out using, what did you call them, nitro gloves, Tom? I started out using the nitro gloves. And I would tell you that the bees didn't sting me, I squished the bees. And by the end of the summer of the first year, every time I would get a sting, my hands would be swollen for days. And I was finally like, I'm not doing that anymore. So I am back to what Mark says, never do. I'm back to regular gloves. So I probably still squish bees as much as I did, but I don't know it because I've got the regular gloves back on. I only had one instance where I didn't zip it all the way up and I'm working away and all of a sudden I'm like, I think those bees are on the inside of my veil. And so I had just gotten to the point where I was like, okay, let's back away and we're going to unzip them and I'm going to take this off. And that was the only time I would count it as a real sting, where I went to take it off and I think scared the bejesus out or the bejesus out of the bees. And I went to pull it up and one of them that was in there came and got me in the neck. But that was a real sting. The rest of them were squish stings as far as I'm concerned. I did it to myself. They didn't do it to me. But I don't do smoke either, so.
I had one come in my veil one time, and I tell you, that sounded very calm. I quickly ran away from the hive and stripped down so fast, I ran inside and left it right up.
No, I thought I would just quietly.
Glad my neighbors didn't watch me.
I worked bees my whole first year in just a cotton jacket I got off of Amazon for, I think, 30 or 40 bucks. And that did all right, but I told myself if I get bees through the winter, I'm gonna buy a ventilated suit or a jacket, I mean, so I did that. I got my bees through, so I went and got a ventilated jacket. I appreciate that a whole lot more. Just getting a little bit of breeze on the back of your neck there is just a big deal. But other than that, I just wear nitrile gloves, and then I'm usually in jeans and sneakers. Occasionally you'll see me out there in sweats or something like that, those. And then I usually have a smoker going, but I might smoke a hive just when I'm opening it, but I usually don't start smoking again until I'm towards like the end of the inspection, and I'm kind of starting to get a little impatient, maybe a little more brash with my movements, and I can go a little quicker, just smoke them a bit.
So I'm good.
Talking about those ventilated suits, I used to work with just the ventilated jacket. And then found out that if you have the whole ventilated suit and you wear just like gym shorts, like you had in high school, it's a lot cooler than even with jeans. So the full suit, while it seemed like an extravagance at first, is a very nice thing to have if you're not like Mark over there and can work in gym shorts and a tank top without a suit. It makes you feel a little self-conscious because when the wind blows, you're like, am I covered?
So it depends on what I'm doing. I have a veil, just a veil. And if I'm gonna be quick, I usually get away with having just a veil on. If I'm gonna be in all of my hives, then I put a jacket on and nitrile gloves. And I light my smoker. Depends on what I'm looking for. If I'm looking for the queen, it's difficult to find the queen if you smoke your bees, because she'll run. So if you're just looking for eggs to make sure that she's been alive in the last 3 days, then I don't smoke. I'll get into them. It also depends. Hives have personalities. I once had a hive that I called Putins. They were Russians or black dark bees. They were mean as snot. They were spicy. Yeah, they were not. They have personalities, and these were spicy. Now they lived through everything. They screwed up a bunch of times with them, and they survived. But it really depends on what I'm doing, and I have to be aware of what I'm doing. If I'm going into your hives, I'm suiting up. I'm going to get a jacket on. I'm getting my gloves on. Nitrile gloves are the best for me because I don't know what the hives have as far as diseases. So if they've got EFB, I don't need to spread EFB, right? And I can put on a pair of gloves, I can toss this pair of gloves, and we'll never touch another hive with those. So if I was starting new, I would say nitrile gloves with a jacket.
I started originally with a beginner's kit from Dayton. So I just done that beginner's kit at the time. This came with a simple veil. This is not the veil that you can get today from the even more cheap than that. I worked with a simple veil for the first 2 years before I decided that I was going to do this enough where I should justify investing in a jacket. At the time, we didn't have the low-cost alternatives that we do from China today. So we basically were buying from a name brand bee supplier, Maxim or Dayton, etc. And so I bought a Dayton cotton white classic beekeeper suit, and I still have that today that I will use. It's hot. When I got into doing my second cutout after I got tore up on my first one, I was like, hey, I'm gonna get a full suit. So then I was like, well, if I'm gonna invest in a full suit, then I might as well get one of these ventilated deals. So I looked for an import alternative to a classic Bee Breeze. Bee Breeze is sort of the original inventor of the real heavy mesh, real ventilated suits that we see, but they're like $300 or $400, and now you get an offshore version, Hilco has got some really great alternatives. So I got a full suit. What do I use today? I bought a Hilco Bee Breeze just jacket because I like the full suit enough for the top part for the breeziness. I was like, hey, I'm gonna change my sweaty white Dayton one to a breathable Bee Breeze kind. What do I normally use? I'm almost always got a veil. I've thought I could get in, put some quick feet on and get out without getting tagged in the eyebrow or the lip or the nose. And I've learned enough times that is not fun enough that I just go ahead and find the 30 seconds to run around the property and find my veil, put it on, even if it's something quick, because it's just no fun. My hands, I hate my hands getting stung even today. They swell up and they're more painful from the swelling than they are from the stings. I wear nitrile gloves. I do still have plastic leathers that I'll wear. My biggest issue with my hives have always been heavy propolis makers. As beginners, it's typically not something you'll see because it usually takes a couple of winters for them to really propolize a hive up really well. But all my hive, like you like pull one frame out and your hands are almost covered in propolis. And so, you get the gloves or, if you're reusing leather gloves, they're great for protection for stings and stuff, but you get that on your hive tool and you set the hive tool down and you got it on your smoker and you get in the car and you got it on your doorknobs. And so that's one of the big reasons, two reasons why I moved to nitrile. One was I wasn't tracking propolis everywhere, and two was I could feel the bees. My original mentor, he used nitrile, and he turned me on to being able to handle frames, being able to feel the bees on the backside of the frames, and flip them before you squish them. So I picked up nitrile gloves pretty early on. I've done blue ones. I currently have a generation of black ones that are just mechanic gloves that are thicker. That's because I double up with using them for mechanic gloves. Do I recommend beginners have black ones? No, they're hot. That bees do tend to sniff them out a little bit more, but I don't know that they've stung them specifically because they're black. This comment about the black watch though, 100%. If I have a black watch, and if I'm wearing my black watch, I will 100% get 2 or 3 stings on my watch band.
Or if you have a Sharpie in your pocket.
Oh, yeah.
They like to sting the tip of the Sharpie.
So I went out once with a pair of dark brown cotton gloves.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't like dark colors.
Well, I they're cotton, so as soon as the stingers, they'll pull stingers, so you don't have a ton.
Yeah, I don't have a go-to wardrobe. Summer, I'm hot. I'm gonna be comfortable as possible. I'll wear shorts. By summer, I've taken enough stings where stings in my arms and legs I won't notice until I get back in the house. I'll be like, why is my leg itchy? And I reach down and realize I got stung in the leg. Like I said, face and hands, I'll always know. But arms and thighs and stuff underneath the shorts, if you're wearing shorts, or just underneath, they'll crawl up your leg. I don't notice them on your leg. And they get right up underneath the band of where your short meets your leg and it ruffles on them and they sting it. So I'll get a band there. You got a question? Comment?
Do you get stung through the nitrile gloves? Yes.
Yeah,
You can.
you can.
They're less,
You've almost got to want it.
they're less willing to sting through nitrile gloves, because they'll land to sting. You'll make them mad, they'll be mad, and they'll land, and they will hesitate, usually fly off. So it's
I
something,
think they don't have the traction. Or
yeah,
something.
or something's not right. Something
I've always heard that they're attracted to CO2, right? Which is why they come to your face. Nature, all your bears, your skunks, nature doesn't put any fur on noses. So if you sting noses, you can deter stuff as opposed to having fur. So they were sort of attracted to CO2. And I always thought the thin skin on the back of my hands gives off CO2. So when I put that nitrile glove on, I help seal that up and they don't instantly tag my hand, tops of my hands and stuff. I don't know how true the CO2 is for my hands, but I definitely noticed that I won't mind them walking on my hands nearly as well. I don't get nearly as nervous with them walking on my hands if I've got my gloves on, my nitrile gloves on, because I'm not anticipating a sting and a finger at any second. That means I got to focus on not dropping the frame of bees that I got, because then that's a bad day for everybody.
So we're talking about propolis on your hive tool and stuff. I keep 2 hive tools and I bring them back to my workshop, throw them in the freezer part of my refrigerator. And then before I go back out the next day, it scrapes off, propolis scrapes off real easy then.
So I keep 2 different hive tools, one for my home apiary, one for the club apiary. And then if I'm going out to a student's house and I know whatever tools I got with me, I like my smoker with a propane torch. Little quick and start deals, because it's easy and it always works. So I'll hit my hive tool with propane torch, heat it up, get it nice and sizzly, then I don't have to worry about transferring anything from that hive tool. You wipe it off and then I'll kind of get you back to a nice stainless tool or can or whatever you got. If you had a question about smoke, I use smoke in a number of ways. I feel it's definitely a tool to use. Okay.
Pump the brakes on that one for a second there. Hey, Tara, do you want to tell us about what kind of gear you're rolling with up there?
Yeah, equipment, you mean like protective equipment, did you say? Yeah. Yeah, I suit up completely. I had a little trip to urgent care one time when I got stung on the shoulder and had an allergic reaction on my face and head. And so it it was fine. I just got a little bit of steroids and was fine with it. But yeah, I suit up completely. And then anyone has little hands, I get kids gloves actually, the kids leather gloves, because they fit me better. So kind of as protective as I can be, because I don't really like being on steroids.
The stinging part we talked about, your swelling stops after about 50 stings. So yours didn't? Mine stopped up after 50.
Oh,
Maybe I need.
if I had 50 stings, yeah. I have not had anywhere near 50
The 50
stings. so-
stings usually stop. I don't usually, I now it still has like little bumps, but it doesn't smell like a huge amount anymore.
If you're older, it's good for arthritis.
Yeah.
I think it depends where you get stung too. And that's gonna be a question here in a minute. So all right, let's go into another one. So when you guys got started, what was the biggest thing you were afraid of? And it probably goes right in line with what we were just talking about, but go ahead.
Yeah, I don't want to get stung. But I'm gonna get stung. I just tried, that's why I tried this one. As far as afraid, I didn't have a huge amount to lose, just some money. But, but there was a lot of fear over it.
Gosh, when I started, I had really nobody I could ask any questions to. I knew nobody that had any bees with it. I wasn't even aware of this club or any other clubs with it. I was scared when I first got my bees. I was scared. It took a while to get comfortable. But it's like, okay, this whole hive of bees, or they're gonna all come at my face and cling on to me. And I mean, those were the kind of things I was thinking. As I say now, how silly of me, but that was a real scare for me. Just the unknown. I didn't know.
Yeah, I was probably scared of the stings, worried about lots of things. But if there was a scare, it was probably the stings.
Yeah, I think I was most worried about neighbor relations. So I've got 2 hives in a backyard just in Bloomington here, just in the middle of town. So I've got 4 adjacent yards. And there's 6-foot fence around everything, but I wasn't sure how the neighbors would take to having bees flying all over the place, but that wound up not being a problem. Once I found the right corner of my yard anyway, so.
At least not yet.
Yeah, right. Yeah. 3rd season, here's open.
What about kids and the swing sets?
Oh yeah, kids are still swinging and jumping on the trampoline back there. Yeah, we're still hot tubbing, so.
So I guess I was being stung always sucks. It still sucks. Even if I don't swell up anymore, it still sucks. So that's probably my biggest fear. I was really afraid of losing my hives, right? That my hives would die. And at this point, your part of beekeeping is going to be losing your hives. Right? They will die at some point. I don't know a single beekeeper that has ever had all their hives survive every year. Right? You have losses, and you have good years, and you have like bad years. So, and you always feel bad about it. That's the other question I get asked all the time. Do you feel bad? Like, you feel terrible. Did I try everything? Did I learn from what I did? Yeah, absolutely. Right? Did I try everything I could do? Yes. But yeah, losing your bees is part of beekeeping.
Yeah, that, I agree with that, and I had prepared myself thinking, I know that I'm going to, so I kept telling myself that you're going to. I was still shocked at how much it bothered me.
I was really bugged.
No,
No, because mine made it through March. What'd you say?
Straight up cried.
I
Yeah,
did,
yeah.
That's good.
I did, because they made it through March. I thought like, oh, I'm good. And then like, all of a sudden, like, I thought I was in the
I
clear.
just had a really strong hive die last week.
Yeah.
Like, it's heartbreaking. Like, I was like, I had plans for them. I was gonna do all this stuff.
Right,
and
yeah.
like,
But
Get excited.
They're bugs, but
So much time.
somehow it's not okay.
It's your livestock.
Yeah.
Well, and there's a lesson to be learned with that too, though. You know, like everybody else, come March, you think, hey, winter's over. They made it. My belief is the majority of bees die right now.
Yeah.
With it.
Yeah, with the temperature swings.
Or not enough food.
Or not enough food.
Yeah.
Mine died. Yeah, I had 7 frames of honey left, so I had no idea how much. Anyway.
My biggest concern was doing some sort of catastrophic mistake that I would make. Typically, something like, rolling a queen, squishing the queen, pulling her frame out, having her fly away, that sort of hypothetical thing that might happen. That at the time, I didn't read a lot of books, but I spent a lot of time on the internet, and so I spent about a year on Vsauce, a big forum, trying to do my research and get a baseline of beekeeping. It's probably not the best place to start because there's a lot of opinions there. So I have a lot of waiting to do with opinions there, but that's where I went to get a lot of my information. And within the first 6 months, I backed into a hive with my tractor when I was mowing around them and knocked one over. So that was exciting. And that's really a learning moment. Oh yeah. That's definitely you're gonna get stung moment.
It's becoming a much better tractor driver.
No, we definitely established a 3-foot minimum rule around hives. Just they don't have to be that close. You can do some handwork around them. And we recovered. And so, it wasn't the end of the world sort of thing, but sort of that sort of major catastrophic mistake that was really gonna set me back. Stings are stings, it's sort of part of beekeeping, right? Like, you kind of have to go into it with that understanding. But that was sort of my biggest fear that I'd screw something up royally that would I couldn't recover from sort of thing.
Tara, how about you?
Yeah, I think having them swarm up by my face was always really anxiety provoking for me. But I got over it actually pretty quickly. They do kind of sometimes come up and are, flying around your face. But yeah, I think that was just sort of my anxiety, sort of one of those things where I felt like, oh, they're gonna get me, or they're all gonna swarm and attack me, but they actually don't. They're I mean, I guess they can, but my bees were never really very aggressive, and so you really had to make them mad. I think accidentally dropping a box to really get them riled. So that's what I would say is what I was most anxious about.
My next one is kind of a two-part question.
There's a
here.
question.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
So I am in town, well, it's rural, but I had a neighbor tell me you can't get bees because I don't want to get stung. So, I mean,
You should tell them that how much are they willing to pay for your property?
Do they
It's not
have
their
flowers
choice.
in their yard? Because if you have flowers, you are attracting bees.
right.
They don't really get a vote.
It's a tricky thing to answer because it kind of depends how you go about this is gonna set the tone with your relationship with your neighbor, in my opinion.
Well, the question is, what are the chances my neighbors can sell?
They step on them.
So when you say you live outside of town,
So everybody in my subdivision has about half to 3/4 of an acre each.
do you live out like on the west side of town?
No, it's out in Carlock.
Oh, okay.
It's not HOA, is it?
So I had bees on my property, that's about that size, 3/4 of an acre. And my neighbors had no idea that I had bees. Until I suited up and walked out to the bees and went through them. Now, that hive ended up being a really, really hot hive, but it's the only hive I've ever put down because it was so aggressive. Then they knew, at that time, they knew that I had bees. And even when they got stung, and I killed the bees, and I let them know, hey, I had to put the hive down. They asked me, every one of them asked me when I was getting bees again. Right, so it was a different, when they first started, they were iffy, and then it was neat, and then they were aggressive, and my neighbor's like, what are you doing? Right, and I'm like, well, I'm the vice president. I don't like bees, I should probably have bees nearby, right? And they're like, oh, yeah, okay. And so then you invite them to come out, suit up. I have an extra suit. I can wear a veil and have them suit up, and they come out and see the bees, talk to the kids about them. It's really how you approach the people. And there's a fear, everyone's afraid of being stung. Everyone's afraid of being stung. It doesn't matter who you ask.
That's exactly right. I was gonna say that I hear this every day. Like I live on the southeast part of Bloomington. I have almost 3 acres. And my neighbor, when I first started having bees on my property there, panicked because they were at his pond, which is like probably about 2,000 feet from my house. And was panicked because his kids, would go barefoot in their kayaks and all this stuff. And he told us to get over here and pick up all these bees that were at the water edge drinking. And it was because we were shaking packages and they come out of the packages with thirsty, right? So since then, this guy buys 2 cases of honey from me every year. And he actually gives it away to his clients and stuff like that. And he comes over all the time with his golf cart and sits out and watches the bees in my yard and things like that. So it's kind of all about how you foster that relationship. I was gonna say, Kathy, tell her your situation.
I live in town, like neighborhood, not huge lot. In my opinion, my neighbor has a pool right on the other side of the fence that it is closest to. And in Bloomington, it's like, you gotta have what, 10 feet or something from the fence or the property line to the hive. And I respect that on the side yard. My property backs up to the airport property, so like I kind of, the airport would probably get, but before I did install these, I texted my neighbors, just adjacent neighbors, and they were both very welcoming, but I did let them know, but I probably wouldn't have, and I would have just waited to do it, had it been the previous owners of the house to my east. They had small children, and one was kind of just very disabled. And so I would have just been like, you know what, I don't want to risk that one, but nobody in my neighborhood's been stung. I also haven't had that super hot hive like Luke and Tom have had before too.
These are very docile.
They are, but if I had a hot hive that, I feel like they're going down.
So
I'm bigger than that, I'm gonna win.
it's interesting what you said about the swimming pool. I find that that's usually the point of contention. And my mentor, when I first started, this little fellow, he was like 92 years old and just super awesome and taught me how to be calm around bees. That took me like a year to figure out. But he told me, like, when I was first thinking about it, he's like, yeah, the biggest problem I have is my pool. Because the grandkids are always in the pool and bees are in the pool. And it seems like bees are attracted to pools, especially if they're saltwater pools. They like to drink from the pool, so they're gonna be there. And there's all extremes to that. So it kind of depends if your neighbors have pools or something. The likelihood of them getting stung is pretty slim.
Yeah, and the neighbors that have the pool are very agreeable to stuff. So I mean, it is a neighborhood relation thing.
They never said pee.
Just to be clear too, I have a side business that I run, which provides bees to people that want to have bees but don't like to eat bees. And they're at houses, and I've never had any complaints.
Just don't put your hives right on their property line. So like, stuff the bees right in their face, that'll be all right.
I would say it's all about how you manage that relationship, and it doesn't matter if your neighbor's a 80-acre farm, or your neighbor's, got 14 kids and all that stuff, and dogs and cats and everything. It just kind of depends what the situation will be, working with them, but I find a jar of honey to those folks is always very helpful to all the neighbors, just to kind of smooth that relationship, and I think that's a great bit of advice to have an extra veil and say, come on over and check out the bees, even if it's just to sit on the patio and have a beer or a cup of coffee or whatever and watch them. That's it goes a long way to being polite about it, rather than being aggressive and saying, too bad, you're going to have to get over and have bees. Now that said, I will go more towards the beg for forgiveness and ask for permission kind of guy myself, but an HOA is where you'll get shut down. So if you have an HOA, they will force you and do bad things and all that stuff. So
They're-
Do you mind if I speak to that?
Technically, they're considered livestock, which is why the HOAs typically can shut them down. Most HOAs have livestock provisions, chickens, goats. They're technically considered livestock, which is how that comes into play. Go ahead.
That's a very good point about the livestock. But number one, talk to your insurance company and make sure you're covered, because not all insurances do that. And even if it's not your bee that stings the neighbor, they're gonna say it's your bee and you have bees.
absolutely.
So you might have a problem there, but keep it as far away from the property, that person's property. So I've been doing this 3 years, and my biggest proponent in my neighborhood is my wife. So she's like, "I'm not putting bees in my yard." But I sent out an email to everyone encouraged me to do it, and they found out me too. So neighbors are pretty supportive.
All right, so my next question is kind of a two-part deal. And it's gonna be, and you can answer it whichever way you want. I'm gonna say, things you wish you knew before you finished your first year. And then what was the hardest thing to tackle your first year? So if you wanna combine them or do whatever way you wanna tackle it.
My first year, I wish I would have tested earlier. I think I first tested for mites in August when it starts to smell like rotten socks. I'm like, something's wrong. And that's just the goldenrod. But I didn't know. And so that's when I kind of took action. But I mean, I checked them all the time. I was kind of monitoring all the things you're supposed to do. So signs of the queen are they doing all the bee things that seem typical? And so I think that I didn't ever have a very strong hive my first year. I got a nuke, they swarmed, they made a new queen. So like they were kind of like delayed that first year. So then they did have mites too. So they just weren't real strong going into the winter. What was the first part of the question again?
So things you wish you knew before you finished your first year, and then what was the hardest thing to tackle your first year?
Hardest thing to tackle, like anything, just making time for doing it. But I can handle 1 or 2 hives, but that's why I only want that many. But I wish I would have known more proactively, or just done it correct. I know more now. Just test, treat for those type of diseases. I did feed, but I think the treating, I wish I would have done that. I think that would have helped, but again, they were weak going into winter, so I thought
Testing and treating.
yeah, I think that would have maybe helped. You never know. I mean, right.
And I kind of have the same answer for both questions. With the, things I wish I would have known, I wish I would have had more knowledge and more, would have had the connections with people where I could ask questions. That's really.
I think more knowledge is a tricky one, because it's drinking from the fire hose. I mean, you're never gonna know it all. I mean, researchers are still learning. I mean,
Yeah, but basically, I had no clue what I was
Right.
doing. So
I mean,
it was
I only absorb so much, it's so quick.
a seamless well,
Yeah.
2 feet in.
so.
Me? My mentor, BK, would always tell me, ask why. Or she would just tell me why. She would make a suggestion, or we're going through things and this is how I do it, ask why. And I would ask why. And so I thought I was kind of good at the asking why. And it turns out probably, I'm just starting to figure out that the asking why I didn't go deep enough. Sometimes the why that she was answering me with, that was a perfectly good why, that was a perfectly good reason. But I then had to filter it through, was it a reason that would help me do what I wanted to do? So it took me a while to figure out what actually my goals were with the hives, which I have not found very many people that have the same goals. And so that sounds really weird. But it's one of those things that I had to keep thinking back to, what did I want out of this? Do I want it? People would encourage you, oh, well, you can do a split, or you can raise queens, or you can, if you do it this way, you'll have more honey. Well, and actually I'm looking at Polly, and Polly gave a talk it was out at Hillco. I guess it was at our first extraction event that I participated in. And she showed how to do the crush method of honey extraction. And made a kind of a side comment about it being a way to slow her bees down. She didn't need to rush them along, just let them. I didn't want to have more than 2 hives. That she wanted to not necessarily make everything go really fast, which is a lot of times what the advice was. Well, if you do this, you're going to get more of this, and it's going to go faster, and it's going to encourage them to lay eggs, and it's going to, like boom, 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 boom. And Polly was the first one that said, I don't want them to go faster. I like where it's at. I don't do this a lot. And all of a sudden I thought, that's what I wanted to do. So I guess I wish I would have asked the why deeper. I'm still learning to ask the why deeper, because just because it's a good answer and it's a great answer doesn't mean it would be necessarily an answer that I would want to follow.
What were the questions again?
Things you wish you knew before you finished your first year, and what was the hardest thing to tackle in your first year?
Wished I knew.
You had an interesting first year, so.
Yeah, I chased bees every which direction. I really had a really fulfilling first year. I don't know that I've got any regrets or missed moments. I mean,
He was like
really,
rookie of the year.
Yeah.
I really chased them down. I got my hands into everything. I don't think I missed a whole lot first year. Hardest to tackle would probably be getting over that the initial jitters around bees, like trying to figure out and read the bees, decide if they're actually angry at me or if they're just being bees. So that was probably my biggest obstacle, was just calming down.
Yeah, mine was probably the rural mites, and it was right around the time that oxalic acid had been commonly used in Europe for a while. The US had not officially approved it. Right, that was, and we didn't treat my first year, we didn't leave my second year. And it was hard to get around my head about how big of an issue they were, especially since I was lucky my first year, both my hives survived. Right, so I was like, oh, these rural mites are not that bad. So it's not true, right?
So you did treat your second year?
My second, maybe third year, it was. what treated. I think I lost my second year and I treated in my third year. But, yeah, I was lucky. I had a mentor, right? I had a club I joined. I read all kinds of books. I like reading books, so I got my hands on like Backyard Beekeeper. I got my hands on Science of Beekeeping,
Bible?
the Beekeeper's Bible I have. So I've read probably 30 books on it. I've got a small library of beekeeping books now. So yeah, it was nice to have. That was good.
So I wish I knew, to be honest, I felt pretty prepared going into it. I've been active in the club, the local club, for close to a year. They had the apiary visits, was a thing that they started, or I don't know if they started it. It was where I was introduced to it. So I've been to several other people's apiaries and got to observe other beekeepers working in their natural environment. So it's amazing what you'll pick up from tips and tricks of how people handle hives and bees and stuff. And then I had a mentor who lived down the road. So my first year, looking back, again, this is 2008, right? It's 14 years ago now, I guess, if I do the math right. There's not a lot I wasn't unprepared for. I guess the hardest thing that I did remember facing was second spring, I had a hive swarm on me. And so I came out and I heard all this buzzing, and over on the peach trees hanging this big clump of bees, and I'm like, that's a swarm. I've heard about those, but 2008, 2009, there's no YouTube like there is today. Like you had, unless you had gone out with somebody captured swarms before, like there's no, here, let me just pull out my pocket computer and look up what I'm supposed to do, right? Like it didn't exist back then. So I was running around trying to scrounge up some woodenware and what in the world, how do I get them from there to there? I'm like, I know this is supposed to work, but like that was, because clearly I understood that, hey, they're about to fly away and these are my bees. So that was probably the hardest thing for me to overcome as a beginner, was when I was unexpectedly caught off guard by that. Which the resources we have today probably won't find yourself in that same situation. 2008, we really weren't concerned about the mites, the varroa mites like we are today. So I really didn't have those concerns about hive health. That we had different concerns about hive health that we were pushed more forward at the time. And in reality, looking back on that today, they're really concerns that we just really aren't concerned about anymore. Tracheal mites and stuff like that. Like in today's world, like, yeah, you can hear about it, but ain't nobody ever gonna come across it these days. And we're likely gonna end up taking losses from something else these days, so.
Tara, do you want to add to your experience there?
Sure. I think that the first year I didn't quite understand how much bees are drama queens. Like I had pets like cats and dogs and such. And for some reason I kind of thought that bees might behave in a way that would be more consistent and stable, and they don't. The different hives do different things. And I was always felt like I was just like writing down notes, and really it was just a missing queen in 1 year in one hive, and then new queen cells in another hive, and just things that were happening that were growing, and I just kind of assumed that they would stay more stable, and they don't. There's lots of flux and change, and I think that's also kind of the hardest thing that last spring, when they were just booming and then they started swarming, and I just didn't have enough equipment. So I was like running to Hill Crow Bees like twice in a week to like get more equipment, because I had these bees that were going to be, I just didn't want them landing on the neighbor's car kind of a thing. So yeah, I wish I had been more prepared during the spring. I guess that would be into the second year. Having the equipment on hand for splits. Maybe I should have done the splits instead of just waiting for some to swarm as well. So I wasn't prepared for growth. I almost was prepared for my bees to die during that first winter. So That's just something to be aware of. If yours make it through the winter, when spring comes, they might be hopping and ready to grow. So making decisions about having more equipment or figuring out ways to deal with all of the extra bees that might come.
Yeah, so one thing I heard earlier was, is actually my next question, is what are your goals? So all of us are very different in our beekeeping experiences and why we're here and what we're doing. So what's your goal for this year? Kathy, I heard you say you started with, keeping a hive alive over the winter and stuff like that. Is that, so what's your goal this year?
Well, my first
You can say a
year,
couple.
yeah, my first year, my goal, because I thought that my one and only hive, come March, I thought that was making it. I'm like, all right, this year I'm gonna try a split because I got this one, I'll make it into two. Like, I thought this was a kind of a gradual getting into it and doing it. And so then I thought I was going to try a split the second year with newbies, and I think any goal that I've had has been derailed because, like Tara said, the bees do what they want to do. So yeah, I would love, so that's why I backed off, let me just overwinter a hive. And I think that, was it Cindy Connect said it the best, if you have livestock, you have dead stock. So overwintering a hive, that is still my goal. Just like I would love to do action up, I don't need to do multiple rifts. I would love to do one, but just back it off to that simple goal, let me overwinter a hive, but that entails a lot of things. It entails feeding, mite treatment, keeping them strong, making sure they don't swarm. I mean, there's a lot to all that. So yeah, step one, I would love to overwinter, but two, I would love to try doing a split. Do I want to do a walkaway split? Do I want to do a split where I add a queen? Bite-sized pieces, so overwintering.
And I guess my goal is just to have fun and enjoy it. I'm at a situation with my life that, I just want to enjoy life. I am, my skill level's okay, enough where it doesn't cost me a whole lot of money to do with it. The honey that I sell, it pays for the things that I want or I need for my bees, with it. I'm the only one that eats honey at my house. I put about a tablespoon of oatmeal every day. That's it. I sell the rest. I got 70 gallons down in my basement. I'll sell some of that. I'm not gonna get rid of 70 gallons. Do I need any more honey next year or this year? No. So it's really just trying to enjoy my time, enjoy what I'm doing. That's what my goal is.
Sounds like you need a lot more meat.
So, well, I got like 15 gallons.
That sounds like a party. Party at Martinsville.
How much?
Couple bees and brews.
So,
And there are many things
There's
that-
always meet people that want.
I know.
yeah.
I know.
Maybe Wednesday is a weird break on that.
Never bad.
Wait, how about you? What's your goal this year? Or a couple goals?
I would like to actually be able to repeat a process or repeat something. In other words, in the last 2 years that I'm doing this, I've not really been able to reuse much knowledge. It seems like that they have done different things, and so I never actually got good at any of them. So I'd really like to be able to go in, have something go, because something's gonna go weird, and go, I know what to do with that, because I did that before. And so I would really like to be able to solve my own question or have my own answer, and that could be on any topic, just being able to have my own idea. That's my goal. instead of going to PK or Izzy or Mark or whatever, and yeah, that's my goal.
So I'm gonna be taking some splits here, mini splits here early to kind of manage the swarming behavior in the early spring. From those splits, I'm gonna build up 2 more hives and then start a queen breeding program. And I'm gonna poke around at queen grafting and mating and some mini mating nukes, queen castles. Yeah, yeah, we'll see how it goes.
I would go. I would, yeah, okay. Maybe you could do awesome. I would go with this. So, but you can go.
It's a path you should walk.
You should walk, yeah, try it.
I like the tiny frames, they're adorable.
Oh.
I'm gonna have to handle.
No, no, we're gonna.
Next time I come in August.
Yeah. We're asking again. I don't know what you're talking about.
Luke, what's your goals this year?
So my goals, I have so many goals. So I'm trying to start a business, right? So that's more of a business goal, trying to make beekeeping accessible to people, other people. So Steve and I have been working on a garage, trying to transfer it to a honey house. There's a window so that I can have people that don't know anything about bees or afraid of bees. You can come over, I can have the bees outside. You have no possibility of being stung. They can come over and do that. I'm also doing the beekeeper for non-beekeepers, right? So for farmers and stuff. So there's education arm of this, but really as far as my bees go, I'm gonna be making splits. I've done that before. I'm gonna be making queens. I've done that before. I just want it to be successful, right? I want to grow my hive. So I don't want to go over 40. 40 is the limit of what I can do and have a job, right? Anything over that, I'd have to quit one or the other, lay off of one or the other, and the wife won't let me quit my job. So I can't go over 40 weeks. As far as the question about honey that was talked about, I make mead every year. When I usually run out, I usually make about 10 gallons of mead. And it's just mead that drinks. It takes a while to drink it, but I'm just running out, so I'll be making the pineapple mellow this year as well, and or maybe blueberry, depends.
Are you gonna teach us how to do that?
I was planning on it.
We do have that as a meeting topic out at Sugar Grove.
And Luke, what kind of yeast do you use?
It depends. I use a
Deep
Loveland, I guess 118 is what it is.
Kellogg pot.
What?
Kellogg pot, something like that.
Yeah, it's something you buy.
So when you're asking what kind of yeast to use, this can turn into like a religious.
Yeah, this will
conversation.
turn it. So I
Like
try to.
mine's better than you're better, and like
Yeah.
learning and like, oh, like this is really cool. Have you checked this out? Or
Yeah,
Kellogg of yeast to start with the pages.
yeah. I usually go
Meat
to.
Maker's Bible is an excellent resource where it talks
is.
about what esters each yeast throws. And
Yep.
all kinds of
I
stuff.
have that one too, and that's a pretty good one. But yeah, so I'd go for a semi-sweet.
So then Luke, with your goals for beekeeping, like you want to do splits, you don't want, like, you've got kind of a range, like you want to split, but you don't want more than 40.
Yep.
And so then those goals then are kind of dependent on what the bees are gonna do and not gonna do.
I
So
can
like,
push them to 40.
what'd you say?
I can push them out to 40. Like we talked about earlier, right? You can push them. I can push them to 40.
So then that's what I was gonna ask is like your splits, do you push the split or you're like, oh, that hive needs to be split, so now let's do that?
Both, right? It's,
Okay.
so the, Tom actually told me, said something once, it's like, you keep bees for keeping bees, you keep bees for keeping honey. And it doesn't usually go well to keep both, right? So I keep bees to have bees. Like, when we're talking about education, when I talk about outreach, not having bees, it's difficult to have outreach, if you don't have them, right? And then, and I still make mistakes, right? I've made mistakes I've had bees for 9 years, I make mistakes every year, absolutely. So I'm keeping bees to keep bees. The honey is a nice side product that I sell and people know about. The wax is a nice side product that we make candles or hand lotions with, and people with those things, right? So really my goal is to keep bees to have more bees. But absolutely every year before I start, I have something in mind of this is what I'm going to do this year. So I'm going, am I going to split them and push them to 40? I'm picking up packages from Tom. I take like 10, depends on the year. And it depends on if I have new people that want bees at their property, right? So I use packages for, I suggest using nukes. If you're brand new, I suggest using nukes. But if you have some wax foundation drawn, this is probably a whole other topic. If you have some wax foundation drawn and you can give it to these people, then you can absolutely use packaging. I've had great success with that. You can use packages with undrawn film too. We've had success with that. But my goal overall though is outreach and education.
So I kind of like to cover a lot of my bases and across the gamut of beekeeping. I like my honey, so typically I manage at least 1 to 2 hives for honey. I won't manage all of my hives to be strong honey producers because I need to do other things with those hives, like be able to make splits. As said before, typically you're either making splits or you're making honey. So I'm going to manage hives so that I can try to accomplish both. I can't guarantee I'm going to get honey out of this hive, but I'm going to try to manage them so that I maximize the probability that I'll get honey out of those. I definitely will have a strong goal to catch swarms. I'll probably have a goal to probably catch about 4 swarms this year. Less than 4, I'm going to be disappointed, and if I get lucky with more, then I'll be ecstatic. But I'm going to kind of thumb in the wind for 4 because with 1 overwintered, 4 will give me 5 total hives. 5 to 6 hives going into the fall is a good number to lose about half and wind up with 2 to 3 to start over and do the same thing. So my goal is sustainable, right? I'm going to be making splits. I'm going to be catching swarms. But at the same time, the honey is important for me. So I'm definitely going to manage at least a couple of hives to be honey producers. And, my running average for the past 5 years is probably 100 pounds a year. I probably have in my house right now only about 20 pounds left. I sell, to friends and family, and I got yard signs out by the road and have people stop, that kind of thing. So it does that 80 pounds that I'll sell. Is that $10 a pound? That's $800. That's really offsetting my beekeeping cost, right? I'm lucky enough that I've been doing this long enough that I kind of don't have an investment in woodenware and equipment on a ongoing basis anymore. I kind of have that sunk cost where I can really focus on, hey, that 100 pounds is important for me as an ongoing recoup. The $200 I'll buy in packages, or $300 I'll buy this year, 35, so about $300 in packages this year. So I'm looking to offset my cost with that honey that I'm bringing in too. So that's in a nutshell. And then I'm collecting some wax because I'll make some candles. Usually they're gifts for family and stuff like that. I don't set out to do that. I'm not explicitly crushing strains, so I have a lot of extra wax, that sort of thing. But there are always things I'm looking for, in terms of I do want to make some candles, so I do want to have some wax for beeswax for candles and stuff like that. So primarily catch some swarms, make some honey.
Tara, tell us about your goals this year.
Yeah, I just want healthy bees. I think that last year I kind of got confused and thought all of the honey production meant I had big, strong, healthy hives. And I clearly didn't catch what I needed to catch sometime in September or October. I also want to get a handle on the hive beetles. So I'm actually moving the hives to 100% full sun area in our property, rather than the area that had a little bit of shade from a tree. So I want to get more of a handle on hive beetles, and I just kind of want to see if I can help just make them healthier overall. And I also bought some stuff like shea butter and a bunch of little cosmetic things to use with the wax. So it's all sitting there and haven't used it yet. So that'd be fun to do this summer, maybe make hand lotions and things like that. So.
All right, so there was some comments in the chat we used to call it IM, where somebody had said, talk about, queens and stuff like that. And then I want to go into what are 3 things that you learned this last season And I think queens are gonna probably pop up in a lot of your comments. So what are 3 things that you learned this last season?
It sounds horrible, but if you start with Mark, what did I learn? I gotta think about this, and that sounds really bad, like if I
We can
can't,
start this end of the table.
yeah, because
Um,
like, yeah, seriously, because.
So, I don't know, about 3 years ago, I had a confirmed case of EFB on the property, so. European foul brood. So it's one of the diseases that as a beekeeper, is a possibility that it's not anything you did wrong, it travels out in the world, flies from bee to bee, that sort of thing. The local inspector came out, he did test the hive, and they did come back positive. So that was the first time in my experience of having to deal with that. So there were some questions last spring about any sort of carryover from that. Have I been able to effectively either cull out those hives from my apiary? Am I going to reuse woodenware? What am I going to get rid of? Have all the hives that were ultimately infected, have they died off? Did they survive? What am I going to do with them? Am I going to try to isolate those more? So that was certainly a learning process for me that carried from 3 years ago, that carried into last year. Going into this spring, I don't anticipate having any carryover from several years ago. The short version of that is, I think all of them essentially died out, even despite my efforts to treat and try to get them through over the hump on that. I learned last year more about probably the importance I have some opinions concerning the quality of queens that we're bringing into the state versus stuff we're raising on our own. I'm not real gung ho on the quality of queens that we're bringing in. I think they get pushed real hard, real early in the spring down south. I don't think they probably have a chance to get well mated like they should. They don't have enough drones to get well mated, and that fundamentally impacts the quality of the queen that you'll have. So my last couple of years, I think I've been learning that my better surviving hives, my stronger hives, my better laying hives are coming from either queens I've raised, either from splits or grafts, or ferals, swarm captures and stuff like that. So that's something that I felt I've learned, my personal opinion. And I would go with 2.
That was kind of the comment that Eric had in here, was how to, he basically said, first year to know when you really need a queen and don't rush to buy a new one, because one is probably on the way. So it's understanding what the problem is that's going on inside of your hive. And I hear this a lot. And I'm guessing you guys are gonna, I think you guys are gonna say these 3 things, so I'm gonna keep my mouth shut. So I'm gonna let you keep going down the line here.
So first year, or first 3 things. One of the ones is the frequency to treat when you're using something like oxalic acid compared to some of the other treatments. In the past, I'd only treated 3 times over a 21-day period. Now I treat every 3 days over a 21-day period. I also move up my treatments so that August 21st is the last time I treat, and then I resample my bees for mites past that point. So that's a big, it sounds like, I've said a bunch of stuff, you guys are all new, you're like, I have no idea what I'm talking about probably. However, that's a big adjustment in your behavior. So you have to understand, you have to be understanding what your mite modes are doing and how effective your treatments are.
I'd say that's a couple things. So what I think I heard you say was understanding the effects of the mite load on the hive.
Yep.
And then also understanding your mite treatment.
Yep.
And how your mite treatment affects the mites.
Yep.
Based on that load.
Yes.
So for example, the oxalic acid that he's talking about is actually most of them are all based on contact. So if you don't have contact with the bees, it doesn't do much for your mite load. So it's understanding when and where to use what treatments.
And if the hive, it seems to be less effective the larger the hive is. there's all kinds, I'm an engineer, right? So, and I'm gonna poke at everything. I'm gonna be like, oh, what happens if I change this? What happens if I change that? So I'm always poking at stuff every year. Another thing I learned this last year is that you will be told that cold is not a problem for bees, right? It's not a problem. What they actually mean is that it's not the only problem. If you have a weak hive, the cold will kill it. If you have a small cluster, the cold will kill it. You can do stuff to help them out through winter, right? So this last year I did covering, I tried all kinds of covers. I tried tar paper in the past, which I didn't feel was very effective. I did R10 covering this year. The ants really appreciated my R10 cover. They built nests right all throughout it. However, the bees that I covered, yeah, they love the foam. And the bees I covered in 5 sides, like 4 sides on a lid, those actually had a much higher survival rate than any of the rest of my hives. So, so I keep track of that stuff too, right? So I'm like, oh, these guys had a higher survival rate. Of those hives, my swarms that I caught during the year actually had a higher survival rate among like swarms versus packages, right? Or and not split. So newer queens may be a part of it, although they swarm. So who knows how old those queens are? I can keep talking about that.
And this goes right to Lynn's comment about a repeatable process. So what Luke's saying is he's poking at things to say, I think I got something.
Yep.
And then let's keep testing it and see if we're consistent.
Let's test it and adjust it.
In
right?
beekeeping, you don't necessarily figure it out in a year.
No.
I'm still figuring stuff out 10, 11 years later, or whatever. And then when I think I got it, I get whooped.
Yep.
So
And I still make mistakes, right? And when you make mistakes, you really have to. It goes back to the comment about being sad about bees dying. You can be sad, let it go, and then learn something from it. If you're not doing that, at least, right, then you're doing yourself a disservice, you're doing bees a disservice.
So number one thing I learned last year was to fight the hive beetles. Number one way to do that is going to be by managing space a little better. And the number one way I can think to do that would be to the number 2 thing I learned was to take more honey. I didn't wind up feeding anything to my bees last year, so I've still got honey frames. I'm just going to be feeding all of my spring splits with. So I'm not planning on making any syrup probably this spring. So we'll see how that goes. And then final thing I learned. Oh yeah, I'll put the high beetles on there again. I think I'm with TK now. Smash them when you see them.
So satisfying.
When you say you're going to feed them honey frames, you're not extracting the honey and feeding it back to them. You're actually feeding the frame.
I'll put the frame in with them. Yeah.
So
I've never tried to extract in the spring, but I imagine it'd be a tough deal to get out of the frames.
But the point I'm hoping at though is that I've had very poor success if you feed honey from your hives. First of all, don't ever feed anybody's honey back. Honey is to your hives, just because that's how diseases and stuff can spread. The second is they don't grow well off just honey. They grow well off of like nectar and sugar water. They don't, in my experience, they don't draw or do well. If you just feed them honey back.
Okay.
Not like extracting honey in the jar. You think that they do, but they don't. They don't do anything.
I think I heard somewhere that there was a study done. They found that feeding sugar water in the summer or the spring as you're increasing your hive is better for the bees than feeding honey. So,
It's definitely a stimulant.
it's, they've processed it. That's sort of what they go to when they need to just survive through the winter. And that sugar water or nectar is going to really kickstart them into.
It's what I've seen.
Actually, we're gonna talk about feeding next.
Okay.
So Lynn, 3 things you learned.
I had my first introduction to a wax moth.
Oh.
And I say moth because there literally was just one of them. I treated for the first time last year, and I did my first, I don't even know what you would call it, but in there, noticed that I had a full-fledged capped queen ready to go. I didn't want another hive, and so I was able to pass that on to somebody else. So that for me kind of felt good that maybe that queen helped go on to her own hive. I didn't have to squish her.
Well, I would say things that I have learned last year would be to really be more aggressive with the mite treatment and start earlier than I have in the past. With it. And don't wait to the last minute to do it. It makes life so much more enjoyable. And along with that would be just for this to be fun and not for it to be a job. I'm in a situation where probably every month, me and my wife go on some sort of little vacation or a big vacation. And gosh, last fall, between running so much and trying to take care of the bees and getting home, and this is what I've got to do. It was a job. I don't want to work. So those are the big ones for me.
Mark's crushing it. All right, Kathy, what are your 3 things that you learned this year?
3 things I learned just this year. One, this past year was have way more equipment than you think you need. I think that was surprising because, again, the first couple of years, everything just wasn't taken off. It was just slow. I was doing what I was supposed to, so then this year it was like, I don't have enough. I need more, I need more, I need more. So I wasn't prepared for the growth that it had this past year. But the first year lesson learned was, like I said, the nuke that I got swarmed, but they made it queen. So like just recognizing, because it's one thing to learn, read, watch, sit in, discuss. But then seeing it, and like Lynn said, trying to figure out on your own. I mean, like I was asking questions to PK or Tom or whatever, too, of could I decide and did I make the right decision? And did I see what was really happening, in my hive, not just theoretically? And so I could see, I don't think there's a queen. I don't think there's even signs of a queen. I think that looks like a queen cell. Okay, let me put it all back. So, I mean, it was just kind of so yeah, one is having enough equipment. 2 was recognizing the things that you're learning and putting it into practice. I think that's a biggie. And then I think the third, like Mark says, is don't make it work, make it fun. But then with that fun, you do still have to commit to it and take advantage of the good days and the good weather to check. Because, like it's the should I or shouldn't I have, if I did this, would it have done better? I had one hive that I scraped out in January this year. And the other one, there was a warm day in February. I'm like, had I gone in and checked for more feed or something, like, I don't know if they had enough feed or not, because there was still, but it wasn't in the right spot. Had I gone in there on that one warm day, would it have made it to the next warm spell, and if I'd have put more feed on top of that one spot that they ate the most of, maybe. So yeah, take advantage of good days and make it fun. And that's hard. Time is something you never get back. You can always make more jobs, make more money or whatever. I mean, but time is good.
Tara, your lessons learned?
Yeah, I got to see some really amazing things last year. I got to see a queen hatch. I heard it doing its little trumping thing and literally saw it was starting to come out. And so I got to watch a queen be bored, which was really cool. I watched a swarm take off and go into a pine tree. And so as my husband's holding the ladder, I climbed up and slopped the bees back into the little container, which was amazing. I mean, really, it's just a cool thing, something I never thought I would do, something I never thought I had the ovaries to do. We'll put it that way. And then also maybe those boxes get so heavy, and I made the dumb mistake of thinking I should just lift it and carry it and bring it back to the house. and did something to my back. And so I'm like, this is not smart. You can take the frames out and carry a few of them at a time, because when they're filled with like honey and things, it's like 60 pounds. And some of you might be able to carry that, but I'm not tough enough to be able to like muscle that thing around with ease. So I'd say be nice to your back, and don't muscle the boxes around if you don't have to. So.
I seem to learn that lesson every year. So I want to add one other thing, and we'll have one last question. So I think one of the biggest things to learn as you work bees, and this is a shameless plug for both clubs. And one of the things I'm really proud of both clubs is that they both have a club apiary. And one of our goals with our club here was to have 6 hives. And one of the guys that works bees with me, Michael LaVaza, you'll see him on the Facebook page. He said he didn't learn until he worked 6 hives next to one another. That's actually when he came by me, and we worked bees right next to one another. And he said, when I saw 6, when I had 6 at a time, is when it really kind of clicked for him. And I'm not telling you all to go get 6 hives, but when you have 6 hives, I mean, you can, and I know where to buy them. But really what you see with those 6 hives is you'll see the good, the bad, and the ugly. And what's more important, and I really like the way both clubs do it, although it's different, is that there's this discussion of here's what we're seeing, what should we do, how should we take action? And one of the things PK started doing that I think is a great idea, we always say take notes. She writes the notes on the inside of the lids. And we write down what we saw and what we did. And then the next time we come back, we start off with what's inside the lid, and then what's going on inside of the hive, and did it work, right? Did those actions happen? So one thing you get from joining the clubs is you get to shake hands with all the people next to you. Even if they're a new person, shake hands and make a bee buddy, because it'll give you somebody to go work bees and help you hold accountable to working your bees. And then you can say, hey, you know what, you want to come by me and I'll come by you, like you will both help each other sweat and cuss and do all that stuff. And we'll figure it out together, that's good stuff. And it's also good stuff to go shake hands to a lot of these people and say, can I come work bees with you? Because I want to learn how you do it. Because if you go down this table, you're going to learn something from every single person here. You're going to learn something you like and something you don't like, or something that doesn't work for you. And that's all good stuff because you're learning from their experience. But when you go to those club inspections, or you go by somebody else that has a bunch of hives, the thing that you're going to get to see is how to read a frame. And that's very valuable. And there's a lot of good YouTube videos on it, and there's a lot of bad YouTube videos on it. But reading the frame as to what's going on, and that's going to go to my last question, but looking at it and somebody pointing out saying, do you see eggs on here? I'll do it all the time. I'll hand a frame to somebody and say, do you see the eggs? And oh yeah, I see them right here. There's no eggs on that frame, right? And it's one of the hardest things learning, I think, next to keeping your smoker going, is actually finding eggs. I've had beekeepers that are 6+ years into it and they can't spot eggs. And it's just learning how to get the light right, using black foundation or something like that, learning some tricks, getting some flip downs with some magnifiers, doing whatever you got to do to be able to see those things. And that comes down to, if you got to wear leather gloves to work the bees, then wear leather gloves, because you're not going to see those unless you pull that frame out and look at it. So it's learning how to read those frames. So now the last question I'm going to go to, and especially this time of year, we talked about that this is, Mark, I agree with you 100%, that this is when bees die. And I feel like it's why bees died the last couple weeks here, we're going to go into feeding. And I guess I'd like to hear some things you've learned and maybe your practices of feeding inside of your hives, and tips and tricks you want to share, any of that stuff. We can start down here. Sure, work that way.
My beginner kit back in the day came with the Workman feeders, the little 1-quart jobbers. I used those for a couple of years before I figured out I did not have time to make it out to my hive like every day, because they would drain that quart in like a day. So it didn't take me long. Probably by my 2nd or 3rd year, I was researching frame feeders, and I still use frame feeders today with caps and ladders. That's important. otherwise they drown in them. I have the club, one of the members have donated to the club, some top high feeders, the big, like 3-gallon deals that sit out directly on top, they almost look like a super. They're really nice, they take a ton of feed, so I, if I'm only out to the apiary like once a week, once every other week, then I can put like 2 gallons of feed in those. Then I have to worry about checking those for a couple weeks. But yeah, I use the 1 gallon internal feeders. If I have if I have comb to draw, I will feed. It doesn't matter if it's an established hive or a package or a nuke. If they have comb to draw, I will give them feed. They may not take it, but I will give them the opportunity to use it. Drawing comb is very resource intensive. You hear numbers like 5 to 10 pounds of honey used to draw 1 pound of wax. So it takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of calories to make the wax and to use that. So I always provide a source of feed if I have comb to draw. So why would I have comb to draw in established hives? I do rotate out my frames. So I may add a new box, a new super, a new honey super. That's just foundation and they need to draw that. So I will definitely, and understand that if it's high flow time, that nectar's coming in strong, they may not use it, but I'll still make it available because if it's spring and we get 3 days of rain like we're supposed to have in the middle of this week, they can't fly. They're still going to have that internal to the hive where they don't need to leave. That's why I have some opinion on Boardman feeders, but I don't like Boardman feeders. They're too small for my opinion. Number 2, they sit external to the hive, which means they can be opportunities to rob for other hives, other bees to squeak in there and rob that out, create raccoons. So I moved to basically internal only. Whether that's a frame feeder, I don't have any buckets, but I've had students that have the 2 gallon buckets they put on top of the inner cover. So if you want to go that route, that's fine. You just gotta have another like honey super or something to put on top of that so you keep your telescopic cover on top. But watch those. I've had plenty of students in the past put those on, don't come back in 3 or 4 weeks. Before you know it, they've got that top empty super all cross combed, all bird combed up because they were exploding in spring and expanding it. We get back to it, and then we got a fun time of cut out.
A couple of those wax candles. And
Yeah.
when I was at the level, they'll see.
Yep.
So I had 2 hives that just had so much moisture damage from those, where we set the hive, couldn't quite ever get it really level. And so it just seeped and seeped and seeped.
If you don't have a good seal, it won't draw back and
Yeah.
then it just leaves.
So my go-to is an internal frame feeder with caps and ladders.
So I agree with Steve on all that stuff. You have to be real careful. Now you're probably in the clear because Maple's I went into my hives when it was nice and warm. There's actually nectar there in some of the frames, right? So I know that there's a nectar source out there. So feeding nectar, feeding that, it's okay. If you go too early, you can cause problems because there's nectar sources coming in. So they kick up all their production, and which means they swarm. And then all of a sudden you have a swarming hive and they don't have the ability to create a queen because your drones aren't out in, right? We don't have mature drones out there. No, you guys cover that. Mature drones take like 2 weeks to mature after they hatch. 2 weeks? 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
5 weeks total.
5 weeks, yeah. So it's 3 weeks to hatch, 2 weeks to mature, and then they can actually go crazy for queens. So if you're feeding nectar too early, then all of a sudden you have a problem because you'll have swarms, and then you have to buy a queen from somebody that has a queen, usually further south from us. But before that, I will feed like early in the spring. I'll feed a pollen sugar block mix with maybe helping it, and actually I think I got the recipe from Tom. We mix it up and I put it into one of those dishes like a Chinese to-go box. I cover it partial I let it sit overnight with the fan, it makes little blocks, and you can put those little blocks in, where they work during winter too. But that helps kind of early spring grow, so they have something to eat before nectar and pollen. Like with maples stuff.
I put up dry stuff last week. Dry pollen stuff. So they can fly out, you can pick that up, it's white, yellow looking. Powder, flour. They were, I only got the one hive in the yard, so they have limited flyers at this time of year, but for as small as the winter hive is, they were hitting it pretty hard. I also have some leftover pollen patties, commercial product from Man Lake that I had in my freezer. I pulled one of those out, stuck it in the hive. It's slightly different. It's gonna have some more sugar and stuff in it. But a lot of people like the dry pollen stuff for this time of year because they're out flying, they can get it, they'll use it if they want it, and you don't have to worry about having pollen patties inside the hive that can create problems for your hive beetles and things like that.
Yeah, I also stand and watch in front of the hives and watch the bees come in. If we got pollen on their legs, right, then it's okay to put extra sources out there for them.
Busy, how about you?
I like well overfed my first season, so like I said, I'm probably planning on not feeding this year still. But if I do have to get into some 1-to-1 syrup, I'll be using my Boardman feeders. I might put it in the hive, I might not. In my backyard with just the 2 hives, I'm not terribly concerned about robbing. Otherwise, like in the fall, I'll use my top feeder, but again, those have sat all year without a drop of nectar in them, so.
Yeah, I've used the external feeders, probably mostly in the spring, kind of in a situation where there's probably too much robbing going on, that's not a great idea. Haven't had luck, had the same problem that I don't know who was that in the back with it leaking and making a mess inside. So I got a new one if anybody wants to look at that. This was my purchase from this week, so. So I'm gonna try that one. That's going on this week. So we'll see if that works.
Be aware that they will draw a comb in that little space between.
Oh, for heaven's sakes.
You've seen it on mine.
Always learning.
Yeah, well, always spending money too, I guess.
I built probably about a 2-inch shim, just a frame goes right on top of my hive. I put newspaper down and I pour sugar on top of the newspaper, flatten it out, where the top will sit on it. And that's how we go through the winter. I've got that on there now. I will switch probably pretty soon to, I got these chicken watering containers. You get them at Farm and Fleet. With it, put sugar water in it, put it upside down. And I found that if you put a rope around, there's a little indentation where the water comes out. If you put a rope there, the bees can suck the sugar water out without drowning themselves.
Is it internal or external?
External, and I will put that, I don't know, 30-40 feet from the hives. And that's what I do. They go through that pretty fast.
They never climb inside though. Yeah, I had one where they climbed, did that once, and they climbed inside and did it, and I had a huge ball of.
And they do, that's why you put the rope around the outside and kind of in it, block it.
I did it one year. I used, went to Walmart, bought the little decorative marbles. I don't know what the ladies call them, but you can buy like a white, clear, whatever color you want, for a couple bucks, and put the marbles in there, and those are stones that won't get nasty with the sugar water. That creates enough gaps where they get down there and get to the nectar, but not actually get down into it. So I use marbles as my blocker for a chicken feeder.
Technically, that's called open feeding.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful. That's also what it is.
There's lots of pros and cons.
There's lots of pros, there's some cons to it.
The bad thing with doing what I do with the chicken feeders is if you live in subdivision, I mean, you got bees coming from heaven, you know, with it. No, I do try to keep in my neighbors. But it's just like harvesting honey in the fall. It's like, oh my God, whatever it was.
I'm probably the lone ranger. I like the quart jars in front. I mean, the. cheaper
Boardman
ones.
feeders.
Yeah, for my purposes, with the level that I don't want to go beyond, you don't want to go beyond 40, I don't want to go beyond 2. I'll give any extra piece of time. And so, I always have like a spare jar made up ready to swap out if I see one empty, because they're just in my backyard. And that's a quick, just take the jar out, bring the other jar in.
You guys thought about using bigger jars? I have half-gallon and gallon jars that I use on my Boardman feeders.
Well, the frame feeder that or the little plasticky deal that sits in front, so mine's external, like it's not inside.
Mine aren't.
So I don't know
I've got the
how,
old metal and wood ones. Not the plastic ones, but I set half-gallon and gallon jars on mine.
How do you get enough space?
Yeah.
Because it
Half
has.
gallons fit right on there. My Boardman feeders are fairly long. They have a couple of steps
That might
on
be
them.
why, maybe the old ones are a little bit longer.
The old ones are long enough to get a half gallon. I've never seen.
There are no probably that long.
They're
yeah,
plastic
like
ones.
there's no way to get anything
I-
different.
I have a
size
couple.
than the quart jar.
Gallon jars are for different things.
Usually gallon jars are wide mouth and they'll fit in standard portals, but I have used a half gallon glass, but at that point I was like, I'm just a half gallon away from a 1 gallon internal feeder and I might as well just do that.
So I'm gonna go to Tara. I saw her go fish out her feeder.
Yep. We had a request on Zoom. Can you show your feeders on Zoom? So this is one of the frame feeders. And so you just you put that in the box, you fill it up with sugar water and the bees go in and drink and then come back out.
That one has a ladder built into it.
See the cap?
Can you pull the top off?
Yeah. Mhm.
There's a ladder system built
I
into
don't
it.
want to get one.
So there's several different sizes. That's like a 2 frame. The one, if you get like a farm supplies, like a frame and a half, you've got brand new equipment, you can still get 9 frames and a feeder in there. My old equipment that's got more propolis built up on it, I can't quite wedge it in there, so I gotta pull 2 frames and you got space. If you look in the catalog, they make them all the way up to like 3 frame wide. They go wide boys and they'll hold probably 2.5 gallons of feed. There's the ladder.
Those feeders are mineral feeders, use those, you've got to get into the hive, you've got to open the hive.
Which is why I like the ones on front, because I can see them out of my back door.
Pretty quick without having to suit up and all of your feeder, but if you're gonna use that or buckets, you got to open the hive and you've got to suit up. So-
There's actually, they actually have one, kind of like what PK's got over there. That's one.
She's
Yeah,
showing you.
Yeah, that's the other, I use this one, but I took care of some of these bees before and they use this. These also work really nice. They also have ones with plastic inserts.
I'm a big fan of this.
Those are, I really like those. They did really like, I consider changing all mine to that because 1, you don't have to mess with frames. And 2, they really drew exceptionally well.
They hold a lot of food.
Yeah, they hold like 2 gallons of feed and they really go after it. So to your point, typically my weekly feeder for a gallon is about a week. If they suck down more than a gallon in a week, that's great. I don't know that I want to put that much more money into feed. But there's plenty of times where I'm checking them weekly, they only use like a half a frame of feed, half a feeder worth of feed. So really, my weekly in a spring, weekly checks for me is about all I want to be in my hive anyway. So it gives me a good reason to go out and check the hive, go actually open it up, go see what the progress is, do they need more feed? Allows me opportunity to go ahead and fill it up. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. Yes, you have to get into the hive, but at the same time, you are going to actually get into the hive. And, for a failure point, most common for beginners is going to be not getting into the hives enough and working the bees in the spring.
Terry, did you want to finish we want to let you finish your thoughts there. You were showing off you're right as they were talking.
No, I like these the best.
The high top feeder.
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
like the best too.
Yeah, and then I just also make sure to buy sugar in bulk because you'll be making a lot. So big bags of sugar. In a big pot to be able to stir it and then pour it in. So,
Use a 5-gallon bucket and a paint stir.
That was one of my big lessons learned, is really to understand how much sugar goes into feed. That's I get pretty depressed when I go to the store and buy sugar for feeding. I'll walk out, and they look at me and I always get the "Are you making shine?" and all the other comments, because I'll walk out with 400 pounds, 600 pounds of sugar. And it's 8 pounds of sugar to a gallon of water, 8.6 pounds approximately. I mean, the bees aren't gonna taste it and go, "Ah, you're a little light, Tom," But how come my envelope's so thin, right? I need more sugar here. But you can go a little rich, you can go a little thin on it. The bees don't necessarily care about that, but it's a lot of sugar. So the jars are a nice touch there, where you can say, I'm gonna eyeball half the jar and put water in there. I think it all comes down to your situations, and hopefully, to wrap all this up, hopefully you learn there's a lot of different ways to do things. And I hope another thing you took away is that seeing different methods of doing this and hearing the why is very important. Because the why for me might be very different than the why for Polly versus the why for Luke versus, Kathy or any of the others. And there's rarely is it's not the right way to do it. There's write down, experiment, poke and prod. I like what he said. I like to poke at it and see, what happens if I do this. Take lots of good notes. Videotape. The Saints there. He wears a GoPro chesty mount, and when he works his bees and goes back and watches his video. I think that's a fantastic idea. I take tons of pictures. I'll just wave my phone around and take pictures of specific things that I want. I always clear photos off my screen. Once it's bee season, everything I got has photos, my steering wheel, door handles, you name it, it's all there. So just keep experimenting with your bees. Learn, don't be afraid of them. Get in and work on, make a bee buddy or 2 or 3. Get some mentors. Come out to the club hive inspections. Go check out the club meetings from our friends in Peoria. We have a mutual agreement where you're basically a member of their club and they're a member of our club, so you can participate in each other's events. Go work bees with Steve. He's a phenomenal teacher. He's very, very patient, shows a lot of really cool things. His style and mannerisms of working bees is really great. I've learned quite a bit just watching him do things, and he's learned things from me working bees and stuff like that. And I love the commentary between a lot of people when we're working bees. That's the ticket. So go have fun with your bees. If you're getting your bees between the next meeting, take pictures. That's a great bit of advice, Mark. Have somebody, your bee buddy, your spouse, whoever, the kid, the neighbor next door who hates you, whatever. Have them take video of you doing this. Enjoy the moment. Enjoy your bees. And have fun with it. Welcome to the addiction for all the new people. We'll see you next month.
Thank you, Don. On the different events, just drop me right in your email and I will send it to you.
Thanks, Tara.
Mark, what did you do this year to get all your hives to survive?